I'm going to ask you about education, which you also mentioned as an important tool. So in the questionnaire, all the candidates indicated a desire to realign schools to meet 21st century jobs. Yet all the skills needed to do that work in creating those jobs, our creativity, the ability to think on your feet, the ability to problem solve, are all stifled by the policies that you've also agreed to in other forums. How do you plan to foster the skills of the future while supporting increased use of standardized testing and charter schools that focus on zero tolerance, more seat time, and cutting extracurriculars? So
let me, actually, I'm just going to challenge your premise about that. So I actually have kids in the public school. So this is, I know it's nice to talk about they're being, educated to the test. I actually have anecdotal evidence. There has to be some assessments of public schools. Those of you in richer communities probably don't worry about it. But in poorer communities or more diverse communities, it's very difficult to assess what's happening in individual classrooms or what's happening in a school district unless you have some forms of assessment. I am not for teaching to the test. I am not, I think, and also having kids who go through MCAS who are transitioning to PARC. This is the Common Core test. I'm more optimistic about it. I think if we can help teachers in terms of their assessments, in terms of their capability to administer PARC and the skills and resources they need, I think that this is an important transition in terms of technology, in terms of creativity, in terms of the economy that we're going to face. But I've never even heard a candidate say that they don't need some assessment. I mean, of course, this is public funding. These are our children. And if they're in a classroom that is not moving forward, is not giving them the skills, we should all be accountable. So for me, saying that I am, I guess, not opposed to standardized testing is absolutely right. So and I want to explain, because I don't think you'd be able to I think the opposite can't be true. The opposite can't be true. No assessments of public education, but on teachers and teacher support. Because this is the world I live in. We cannot throw new systems onto our school districts, onto our teachers, and assess teachers without giving them the proper transition, the proper training, the proper resources. We cannot have teachers settle the problems of today outside of the schoolroom in their classroom. Right, so we have to support teachers, we have to support teacher training, get more kids into teaching by loan forgiveness, all the things I talk about in my economic plan. So you mentioned standardized testing and charter schools. I'm not, once again, I'm not for lifting the cap on charter schools if the jurisdictions want it. I think that there's been a lot of debate the last 2 weeks about it. I think the charter school debate is an important one, but I have, like every other candidate, put qualifications on it, right? I mean, it's, charter schools have to share their ingenuity and what they've learned. They cannot exclude students in a way that makes their scores seem better. They have to be inclusive. And all the pieces that have put charter schools as part of a dialogue about where we are in terms of education. That has to happen again, and we sort of lost that debate. But I'm for a variety of both public, vocational, and other aspects of schools and other types of schools that are important for our students. The world is changing, and variety is not necessarily bad. And I've been very strong on vocational schools as well for that reason.
I'm going to have some follow-ups on that. So I guess I will say, when you said I can't imagine not having standardized testing, I would challenge you to think of the #1 school districts in the world, Finland, as an example, that doesn't do that. But they do. I have a follow-up with it. So what they do is they do a test to assess how kids are learning, how classrooms are doing. But it's not a test that is sort of encompassing all that schools are in danger of sort of losing their funding, or kids are in danger of not getting able to move on based on it, right? So it's an assessment tool. So I do have a question that's with that, with the standardized testing. Yes. So what it does do a really good job of assessing is family wealth.
Right.
So it doesn't do a good job, and the initial reports out of PARC, although obviously very initial, are that it's actually worse. So I guess my question would be, would you push for sort of standardized testing that does sort of meet what you're asking for, which is something that assesses the ability to learn in schools?
Right. I haven't heard that. I mean, okay, so let's just go to the Finland example. We're not Finland. I mean, our schools are diverse. They are populations that have learning disabilities, immigrants. We're teaching, 70 plus languages in Boston Public School alone. It's awesome. That is who we are. That is the kind of state we are, kind of country we are. But it means we cannot, sort of use a comparison like Finland and say, well, they don't do it that way. First of all, that's an assessment. I mean, in other words, what you described is an assessment, so we can debate the test. But, this idea that we don't owe it to our children to give parents the tools, let alone the teachers, let alone the principals or the school districts, a variety of means to determine what is happening in the classroom, we got to do it. We absolutely have to. We have to do it for our kids. We have to do it for principals, and we have to do it for teachers. Look, no one benefits from a bad classroom. So that's where I am on this issue, and we have our challenges in the public school system. We have to view as our opportunities, right? Because how amazing is it that we're teaching 70 languages, that every kid, regardless of a disability, has access to school, that we have a variety of schools. On the question of, what kind of tests, I hadn't heard that about PARCC. I'll tell you just anecdotally, my boys are somewhat excited about PARCC because I think the technology aspects of it sort of cater to cater to the way that they learn today, just as different than the way I learn. But I will keep an open mind about the specific test, honestly. And this is a transition period. The burden should not fall on teachers. I am well aware of it. The transition has to be smooth. It has to work for our teachers and our students.